Welcome back to Comic Cappers. Today we will be capping Absolute Wonder Woman issue number 2. With that said, grab a snack, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. News reporter Alan Fox breaks into the broadcast warning viewers that they are witnessing history as a mysterious, superpowered woman, Diana, engages in a desperate battle against massive, otherworldly creatures on the Gateway City beach. The chaos intensifies as a new, nightmarish entity emerges from an unknown object, marking a point of no return for the city. Diana leaps across the massive, monstrous form of the creature, her red energy lashing out as she strikes a devastating blow against its glowing hide. She swings around the creature's flank, maintaining the momentum of her attack as the beast lets out a pained, ear-piercing shriek. Diana stands her ground before the creature, issuing a cold ultimatum to the entity she identifies as Harbinger Prime: retreat now or suffer the consequences. Diana's ultimatum is met with a cold command from the shadows. The unseen adversary, clearly unimpressed, orders the swarm of Harbingers to descend upon her. The creatures swarm in, their shriek-filled charge met by Diana's defensive energy. She unleashes a burst of light, cutting through the encroaching mass with raw, explosive power. Diana stands firm, deflecting a beam of energy with a shimmering shield. She delivers one last, stern warning for them to retreat, only to be met with a final, defiant rejection from the enemy. Diana unleashes the full power of her blade, Nemesis. She explains its dark origins, forged in the fires of hell by her mother, Circe, using the remains of a basilisk and the blood of Prometheus, all blessed by Demeter. She tightens her grip on the creature, telling Harbinger Prime that the blade is a unique kind of hell for it. Because the monster's soul is stained with the blood of the innocent, Nemesis burns in direct proportion to those sins. As the Harbinger shrieks in agony, begging for release, Diana remains unmoved. She reminds the creature that its suffering is merely the pain it has inflicted on others coming back to haunt it. She demands it accept this judgment, offering freedom only on one specific condition. Diana delivers a cold, regal ultimatum to the Harbinger Prime. She claims Gateway City for herself, marking it as under the protection of the last Amazon and the forces of the Wild Isle, and commands the beast to pass that warning along to its masters. Facing the searing judgment of the blade Nemesis, the Harbinger Prime has no choice but to concede, offering a simple, defeated, "We accept." Diana acknowledges the surrender with a curt, "very well," as she maintains her position above the creature, still tethered by the glowing energy of her blade. The threat appears to be receding, but a grim caption warns us that this victory is far from the end of the conflict, as the surrounding swarm of monsters lingers. As the Harbinger retreats into the ocean, the live news feed from Gateway City captures a reporter's unprofessional panic. He's caught off guard, realizing mid-rant that he's still on the air. Amidst the lingering smoke of the battlefield, Steve Trevor approaches, clearly stunned to find Diana standing there. He calls out her name, hesitant and searching for confirmation. Diana turns, her gaze intense and marked by the remnants of the battle, focusing on the man who had been lost to her. Steve stops, visibly processing the reality of the moment as he stands before the Princess of Hell. Diana acknowledges him, her voice steady and calm against the backdrop of the smoldering beach. She simply says, "Steve." They stand in the wreckage of the beach, a quiet, surreal reunion occurring while the city behind them remains in chaos. We flash back to the Wild Isle, a hellish domain that serves as the home for Diana and Circe. Diana finds a man washed up on the shore, his military gear looking entirely out of place in this dark, crimson world. She kneels beside him, clearly concerned, and tries to wake him. Circe looms over the scene, her expression unreadable as she speaks in a language that feels as ancient as the island itself. Steve Trevor, barely conscious and delirious on the shore of the Wild Isle, mutters an apology to his comrades. Diana watches over him, her expression softening with concern as she tries to reach him. Diana calls out to him using the word Khazar, while a mystical green fire flares up around her, signaling her otherworldly nature. Diana adjusts her approach, her eyes glowing with a faint supernatural light as she tries to establish a mental or magical connection. She asks, "Try again." "I can understand you now, can you hear me?" She gently touches his face, pressing for answers. "Who are you? Where did you come from?" she asks, trying to pierce through his confusion. Suddenly, the environment turns hostile. A tentacled creature lashes out from the surf, dragging Steve back into the water. Diana cries out in shock as her chance to learn the truth is violently ripped away. Diana lunges into the dark, churning water, abandoning the shore to dive after Steve Trevor before he can be pulled under for good. She plunges straight into the depths, the water glowing with a strange, mystical energy as she descends to intercept the creature. With an intense look of focus, Diana emerges from the water, cradling an unconscious Steve Trevor in her arms. The surface of the water ripples with the sound of the creature retreating into the depths, marked by the bubbles rising to the surface. Diana kicks open the door to her home, carrying the unconscious Steve Trevor. She immediately calls out for her mother, Circe, to grab some Cerberus fur to keep their unexpected guest warm. As they lay Steve down, Diana explains that she found him on the shore. When Circe asks if he just washed up, Diana clarifies that a hydra tried to snatch him away, which explains why they're both soaking wet. Circe is clearly taken aback, warning Diana that she can't just fight a hydra so casually. Diana brushes it off, claiming she didn't really fight it, she just took him back. Circe, ever the pragmatist, just hopes the beast doesn't have a long memory. Diana turns deadly serious, vowing that if the hydra does come back, she'll kill it. She insists Steve doesn't belong to the monster, prompting Circe to ask if he belongs to Diana instead. Diana rejects the idea, insisting he belongs to himself, but she feels responsible for his life since she's the one who found him. Circe, amused by her daughter's noble streak, simply agrees to put the kettle on. Steve Trevor, still recovering, questions Diana about the language she spoke on the beach. He's confused to learn that even though she speaks Greek, they are definitely not in Greece. Diana tries to break the news gently, explaining that he's in her home, which she shares with her mother, Circe. But when Steve presses for a more specific location, Diana hesitates, knowing the truth is a lot to process. She finally drops the bombshell: he's in the underworld. Steve's reaction is exactly what you'd expect, pure, unadulterated shock as he realizes he's in hell. Steve spirals, wondering if he's dead. Diana reassures him that he's alive, though clearly fragile from his ordeal. She decides to step back and give him a moment to process the fact that he's currently trapped in the afterlife. Diana and Circe sit at a table, watching a distraught Steve Trevor in the background. Diana is clearly searching for answers, questioning whether the stranger's arrival in their domain is some kind of test or trap. Circe's expression shifts. She offers a cryptic, unsettling alternative: perhaps he is a gift. The two women share a quiet, contemplative moment, processing the implications of Circe's words. Steve pulls himself together, offering a formal introduction to his hosts. He identifies himself as a pilot from the United States Air Force and expresses his gratitude for their care. Circe introduces herself and Diana, welcoming him to hell with the caveat that the Wild Isle is the safest corner of it. Steve, still needing answers, asks Diana to take him back to the spot where she found him so he can investigate, and she readily agrees. Back on the shore of the Wild Isle, Diana stops Steve Trevor from skipping stones into the water. She reminds him that the hydra that attacked him is likely still lurking beneath the surface. Steve is understandably unsettled by the mention of the creature. Diana points out a tentacle slipping under the water, but Steve can't see it. She apologizes, noting that her senses are far sharper than a human's, even a pilot's. Steve stares at her, clearly struck by the intensity of her gaze and the otherworldly nature of this place. Diana and Steve Trevor walk along the rocky, hellish landscape. Steve remarks on Diana's height, noting that women in his world rarely match her stature, to which she replies that she is, in fact, quite tall even by her own standards. As they continue, the conversation turns towards Steve's existential dread. He struggles with the reality that he may never return home, dryly noting that he never expected his life to end up in hell. Diana dismisses his focus on their physical differences to keep the conversation moving. Steve collapses to the ground, overwhelmed by the emotional toll of his situation. He admits to Diana that he always considered himself a good man, clearly questioning why he has been brought to this place. Diana sits down beside him on the jagged shore. She offers a moment of comfort, telling him that not everyone belongs in hell. Sometimes it is simply where they end up. Steve acknowledges her kindness and thanks her for saving his life twice. Gateway City is in ruins, smoke billowing into the sky as Diana and Steve Trevor embrace amidst the wreckage. Steve pulls back, clearly stunned to see her in the middle of the chaos. He asks what she's doing here, and she simply replies, saving the day. With her skeletal Pegasus nearby, Diana prepares to head into the city. Steve remarks on her armor, awkwardly calling it a costume before correcting himself to uniform. He warns her that he's been tasked to bring her to Commander Cole. Diana isn't fazed by the looming military confrontation. She tells Steve she's well aware of how the world of men works, thanks to her mother's lessons, and she's ready to deal with the inevitable friction of being a savior who isn't entirely trusted. Commander Cole is losing it. He accuses Diana of endangering lives and suggests she's in league with the monsters she's fighting, calling it far too convenient that she appeared just when the threat emerged. Diana stands her ground in the middle of the military command center. She calmly calls out the commander's frustration, noting that he hates not being able to control her, but she refuses to make his insecurity her problem. Diana makes her terms clear. She's here to help save lives because a much greater threat is coming. but she warns the commander that she will not be turned into a tool for his military-industrial complex. Diana stands over the tactical map, pressing the military for an update on the evacuation. She cuts through the tension by clarifying that the creature they fought was merely a herald, a warning of something much worse to come. As the realization sinks in, Diana confirms the grim timeline. She doesn't know exactly what the threat is, but she knows it will arrive within the hour. Commander Cole snaps into action, barking orders to accelerate the evacuation. He gives the city officials a desperate 40-minute window to clear the area. Cole turns his aggression back toward Steve Trevor, threatening him with a court-martial for his insubordination. He makes it clear that he sees Steve as just another soldier, not a hero, and he's ready to make an example of him. Diana doesn't waste time on Commander Cole's threats. She calmly shuts him down, reminding him that he needs her help far more than she needs his authority. She tells him to cool off and walks away, leaving him stunned. She heads out to tend to her mount, leaving the soldiers to wonder what exactly a creature like that eats. Her answer is as simple as it is unsettling: magic. Outside, Steve catches up with her. As Diana strokes the skeletal Pegasus, she confirms that the threat isn't over just because the Harbinger is gone. Steve, clearly out of his depth, asks if he can pet the creature, and Diana lets him, noting that the horse finds his presence soothing. Steve finds himself in a hilarious loop of logic when he learns the horse's name. When he asks what the creature is called, Diana simply tells him it's Pegasus. He tries to clarify if that's just the species, but Diana stands firm. The legendary, mythic, Zeus-slain Pegasus is just named Pegasus. Diana is hit with a sudden, overwhelming psychic or sonic assault, crying out as she clutches her head. She immediately warns Steve Trevor to cover his ears, her skeletal Pegasus also recoiling in distress as the environment begins to shudder. Diana struggles to regain her footing amidst the chaos, reassuring Steve that the initial wave of sound will pass. She moves to a defensive stance, warning Steve that the sound itself is just the beginning. The real threat is what follows in its wake. Diana enters a state of deep, ritualistic focus, reciting a prayer to Hecate and her sisters, preparing herself for the inevitable battle against the arrival of the Tetracide. As the sonic disturbance fades, the true horror reveals itself. Looming over the Gateway City coastline, the Tetracide emerges from the sea, a massive, nightmarish entity that defies natural logic. A caption warns that those who witness its face do not survive, and as Steve Trevor stares up in sheer terror, he can only ask what it is. Diana's answer is short, cold, and absolute. It is death personified. Diana immediately shifts into command mode, looking Commander Cole in the eye and ordering him to evacuate the entire city, promising she will buy them time. Cole is clearly rattled, questioning her on the scope of the threat, since she had previously estimated a much smaller impact zone. Diana doesn't mince words, simply admitting that she was wrong about the scale of the danger. Diana stands alone on the shoreline, a tiny figure facing the colossal, nightmarish form of the Tetracide rising from the water. She offers a final prayer, noting that this entity leaves absolutely nothing behind, as the issue ends on a grim note: death of fear. And that unfortunately concludes our comic cap for today. With Diana admitting she drastically underestimated the Tetracide's scale, do you think she has any real chance of holding it off alone, or is she essentially walking into a suicide mission? Let me know your answer in the comments section down below. Be sure to subscribe and press that notification bell for daily comic caps. Until next time, take care, brush your hair, I'll see you when I see you, peace.